This is Michael Popok, Legal AF, with one of many hot takes you're going to hear about Donald Trump's indictment down in my neck of the woods, the Southern District of Florida, with an arraignment on Tuesday in Miami. But reporting is, and we've seen the indictment now of Donald Trump, an initial assignment to one Aileen Cannon, who does not sit in Miami, but sits in the Fort Pierce division of the Southern District of Florida. I'm going to explain to you on this hot take why I don't think everybody getting all up in arms about Aileen Cannon's going to be the trial judge or the supervising judge is really going to happen. And I'm going to walk you through why. And I'm going to walk you through why I believe she's on the initial indictment and has been assigned the case for now, initially, subject to two major events, her recusing or disqualifying herself. And if she doesn't do it, the 11th Circuit, which is the appeals court above the Southern District of Florida that sits in Georgia, who is already tangled with and thrown the book back at Aileen Cannon when she made improper, unlawful decisions about the search warrant and the criminal process in this case before. We're not going to have to worry about Aileen Cannon much longer, but she will be, it looks like, presiding, or at least the magistrate judge. And I'll talk on this hot take about what is a magistrate judge, what is the presiding judge, and what does it mean to have that judge subsequently, or even on Tuesday, recuse themselves or be removed and reassigned by the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. Let's walk through it now on this hot take here, only on the MeidasTouch Network. There's a reason I believe that the initial indictment, and here's a copy of it, most people have seen it online, has been assigned by case number 23-80101, CR Cannon/Reinhart, Cannon being the federal judge, Reinhart being the magistrate that works under the judge and handles things like, in a federal case, arraignments and other issues, everything else being left to the judge. The clerk that took in the indictment that was returned in Miami by, apparently, follow this circuitousness, a West Palm Beach grand jury that was relocated to Miami for security and other COVID reasons, that was hearing evidence, but the indictment was returned in Miami. But the clerk that's been assigned to this is Angela Noble. Ms. Noble, Madam Clerk, resides in Miami division of the Southern District of Florida. There are multiple divisions starting in Fort Pierce, West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, and then one in Key West. And so the clerk matters, and the clerk here is the Miami clerk. And the fact that there is Cannon and Reinhart, which were the two judges, magistrate and judges, that handled the initial search warrant being issued, Magistrate Judge Reinhart having issued the search warrant, Cannon being randomly assigned to the case when Donald Trump filed a lawsuit to challenge the search warrant. But she wasn't presiding over the grand jury, apparently, because there has to be a supervising judge for the grand jury in the Southern District of Florida, and that usually falls to the chief judge, in this case, Cecily Altanaga. Now, so Cannon, got into her problem with the 11th Circuit because she made some bad rulings that were inconsistent with criminal law, constitutional law, and due process in favor of Donald Trump, and got slapped back not by one but by two separate panels of the 11th Circuit, which is her boss, her appellate boss sitting up in Georgia. And in fact, the last panel was headed by the chief judge of the 11th Circuit, William Pryor. So that's why Cannon was assigned, because the clerk, I believe, checked the box to make this a related case, since it ultimately, some of the issues are adjacent to or related to the search warrant, which Magistrate Reinhart and ultimately Cannon dealt with. So I think she checked the box. Otherwise, I can't believe out of 26 or more senior status and regular judges in the Southern District that I got randomly assigned to Cannon and Reinhart. I believe that the clerk would have assigned them because of their prior work and experience related to the search warrant. That is for the initial assignment. That does not mean that Judge Cannon is going to preside as the trial judge over this jury trial. It's a jury trial, ultimately, to try Donald Trump. But the trial judge does have, of course, tremendous power, because they hear all the motion practice related to whether the indictment should be dismissed, for instance, or there was some hanky-panky in the grand jury or errors in the grand jury that the defense for Donald Trump can attack. That would go through the trial judge. But now let's get to the meat of this hot take. Why I continue to believe we don't have to worry about Judge Cannon. First of all, she was so summarily roasted and embarrassed and reversed by the chief judge of the 11th Circuit, her boss, that now having been assigned this initially by the clerk, and that's why there's so much reporting about it being an initial assignment, and her name being listed on the indictment, that she would, on her own, based on the judicial canons that require recusal or disqualification in federal court on the appearance of impropriety or otherwise, she will recuse herself, meaning she will take herself out voluntarily without motion practice having to be made, a motion being filed by the Department of Justice to do that. She would do it on her own. If she does not do it, and this might all come to a head on Tuesday during the arraignment, look for the Department of Justice to file a motion to recuse and disqualify her, and file that not just with her, but with her bosses at the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, starting with Chief Judge William Pryor sitting in Atlanta. And based on the case law that's out there, and her prior rulings, and her prior mistakes, and her lack of sophistication to handle complicated criminal matter involving the former president of the United States, look for the 11th Circuit to take her out of her chair as it relates to Donald Trump and the trial. So I could be wrong. I mean, there are occasions when I'm wrong. When I first heard that the case yesterday was the indictment was returned in Miami grand jury, I said, okay, going to be Miami judge, because almost never is a case assigned to a judge 100 miles away in Fort Pierce division of the Southern District, if the case, the jury, the proceedings, the clerk, the personnel is all in Miami. Now there's reporting that maybe it was in Miami for security reasons and because they had an issue in West Palm Beach, which is near Mar-a-Lago, in terms of holding a grand jury. And that's why I got moved. But if I'm doing my sleuthing, we do have, here it is, the clerk, Madam Clerk Noble, who sits in Miami, who actually issued the indictment and docketed it, put it in the docket, which means it's sitting in Miami, right? And if it's sitting in Miami, there is no way that Aileen Cannon, 100 miles away, for instance, at trial, is going to come down every day, a 3-hour trip to get to Miami to preside over the case. And we're done with Zoom world. These are now live trials. So that's another factor, another data point for me that she's going to recuse, disqualify, and or the 11th Circuit is going to crack its knuckles and say, Aileen Cannon, you're out. We're putting in another randomly assigned judge. And the 11th Circuit could actually pick the judge that they want. Could pick the Chief Judge Altanaga, who used to be on the state court bench down in Miami. Could pick any number of judges in Miami, a very fine and solid federal bench that I practiced in front of. Many of the judges coming up through the state court system and the highest trial level courts there. There are also very good judges sitting in West Palm Beach, including Judge Middlebrooks, who has already presided over 2 cases involving Donald Trump and has already sanctioned him at least over $1 million related to those civil cases that have been brought. So once we get out of the world of Cannon and get to the world of the proper judge for trial, I think all of that comes to fruition on Tuesday. So what to look for off this hot take and this tutorial now, Breakout Legal AF Law School, about what's going on with the assignment and the divisions within the Southern District of Florida, and why Cannon. The answer to why Cannon is you're asking the wrong question. When will Judge Cannon, recuse herself voluntarily or be disqualified by motion and replaced by the 11th Circuit, her bosses up in Atlanta? That's the question. And if she doesn't do it on her own, I'll leave you on this. Jack Smith and his team are not going to sit idly by and let Aileen Cannon preside over this case, having watched her bungle her way through the earlier search warrant issue and the lawsuit, the meritless lawsuit brought by Donald Trump to try to tie up and overturn and stop the criminal investigation in its tracks before it even became an indictment. We'll follow it closely, and I will, because I sit at that intersection of law and politics, those politically charged litigation matters. I do it on Hot Takes just like this one on the MeidasTouch Network on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and boy, this Saturday is going to be a doozy. We do it on a podcast also on the MeidasTouch Network called Legal AF that I co-anchor. And we curate the best stories. We'll be talking a lot about all things Donald Trump on this Saturday's edition. And then if you like what I'm doing on the YouTube like this, you can give me a thumbs up. It helps. It helps with the content's quality and quantity. And open a dialogue with me in chat, and I'll do the same back to you. And you can follow me, Michael Popok, on all things social media at MS Popok. This is Michael Popok, Legal AF reporting.
Lock him up. Indictment season is upon us. Celebrate with the new Indictment Season t-shirt and v-neck exclusively at store.meidastouch.com.